This is he breaks down the car parts and stuff a little.
Plan itself, and they did recognize the fact that we do already have a trade agreement in place. So before Canadian built cars or partially built cars, because Canada doesn't build an entire car itself, they're going to try to determine how many parts were actually manufactured in Canada versus the United States. So before everybody sits there and starts going, the sky is falling, the truth of the matter is that they're going to figure out, okay, how much of Canadian content is in the car. Well, if you were to turn around and actually do the numbers, and there's a few experts that did weigh in on this, it's only a couple $1,000s. So 25% on a couple $1,000, a car could cost maybe $500 more. Now, I know there's going to be a few people that are going to say, jump up and down and say, well, wait a minute, Todd, that's not how it works. But the truth is that before everybody, reacts and starts, going crazy and starting tariff for tariff, which we don't need a tariff for, then perhaps we need to see, what we're truly looking at. And remember, these dates are always moving. So here's what, the existing leader of the Liberal Party, and I'm going to call him a non-elected prime minister, because this is exactly what this guy is. He's merely the head of the Liberal Party, and he has dissolved government. So quite frankly, he should not say anything on Canada's behalf, but he still decided to step both feet in it yesterday.
Have you heard this clip of him?
Probably.
Yeah. Should I play it? I guess I should.
You should play it. Yeah.
I was going to play it somewhere else, but I'll play it here.
Our biggest challenge as a country is becoming the most urgent. Over the coming weeks, months, and years, we must fundamentally reimagine our economy. We will need to ensure that Canada can succeed in a drastically different world. The old relationship we had with the United States, based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperations, is over.
Wow. You know what? I just want to let all Americans, and I'd love to know that if Donald Trump would listen to my podcast, but the truth is, he's not speaking for Canada. I want to be very, very clear. Mark Carney is not speaking for Canada.
I don't know if we have to keep going on that. His clip was longer. Not his clip, but Carney's clip. I mean, everybody's been talking about it and sharing it. I can just play the rest of that on the Post Millennial if you want, or I think you're muted or I can't hear you. Oh, you're still muted on the actual
StreamYard. Oh, they get you. Yeah, you might as well. I mean, it's gonna get in. Add some comments when you're done.
Our biggest challenge as a country is becoming the most urgent. Over the coming weeks, months, and years, we must fundamentally reimagine our economy. We will need to ensure that Canada can succeed in a drastically different world. The old relationship we had with the United States, based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperations, is over. What exactly the United States does next is unclear.
Do you know if he did the speech prior to his meeting with his call with Trump?
No, I think Trump called him and said, you better watch it.
After this?
Oh, yeah, because this is the part I'm talking about. I mean, you talk trade war all you want, but if we're talking about losing our security, that's crazy. I mean, I don't really care because I'm not, of the mind, but I think that this is crazy to his base because his base are the people that are most scared about Russia and China and Al Qaeda and all these places. And, whereas our stance around here is, I don't see, we should just not be worried about what's happening over there. That's the main problem is we're so entangled in what's happening on the other side of the planet that it's coming home to roost. But, I think that his base this is probably because I think that you can get them riled up to a certain extent and that's fine. Buy Canada. I'm not going to go to Florida this year, which I think I already said on the show, but trying to get these people to say they're never going to Florida again, or, they want they want to lose the protection of the strongest military in the world, or maybe lose long-term access to the most powerful economy in the world. Now, in the history of the world. Now, that's one side of things. I think that the other side of it is that it's going to get interesting because I mean, he's saying some of the right things, right? Even from our side, I would agree that they should have probably remanaged the economy a while ago. You know,
I know, but it just doesn't. Who knows which way?
I'm not saying, I'm not going to say which way, but you know, in some ways, you say that because Pierre say the same thing. We don't know what Pierre's going to do. We don't know what any of them are going to do. But something has to give in the economy. Something has to give in the economy. I think no matter who wins, whether it's Pierre or Carney, we're at a fundamental crossroads because it's okay. If we're going to reimagine the economy, right? We're already talking about pipelines. We're already talking about natural gas. We're talking about all these, you know, how we're going to go into both of them have talked about the Ring of Fire in Ontario and getting that stuff out of the ground. And Indians aside from all that stuff requires I feel like we're at a crossroads for the country, no matter who wins. Really, in some ways, no matter who wins. Now, I think that if Carney wins, it's accelerated, and Alberta and parts of the West find their way out of the Confederation sooner than later. But the other option is pipelines, you know, which I think that there's a chance that either person who wins, I think there's a real chance that they want to do some pipelines, and they're going to maybe use because like when we talked about with Marty on the show, he's like, well, the main problem is the landowners. Yeah, you get the federal government involved and all that can start going away, right? It just, I mean, sorry to the landowners, but if they want to build a pipeline through your shit, they're just going to do it. And as far as the Indians goes, they own the land already anyway. So that's not as hard to negotiate out of. I mean, aside from blockades and stuff like that, but from a legal standpoint, the federal government owns the Indian land, so they can do whatever they want. And we've seen around cities when they want to put in a new ring road or a new your property rights go out the window. Eminent domain comes in and the government will just take it at fair market value if you take the deal right away. And if you fight them on it, you know, at less and less fair market value. I think the people that stood up against Glenmore, there was like 11 houses that refused to sign on to the Glenmore deal, and I think they went from getting like 140% of appraised value to like 80% in the end when the government, and there was no winning. The government just took it under eminent domain. So I think that, you know, Pierre wins, he's talking pipelines. Carney wins, he's talking pipelines. Where's the pipeline going? Are we going to build a pipeline through the mountains? Fine, I'm down with that. I mean, there's all sorts of problems with that, with unceded territory, where BC is maybe the one province where they don't own the land from the Indians, where it could get weird in court even. And what does the states do now when you have an international thing going on in the UN? I don't know if the UN gets involved. I don't know what happens there, but the BC is kind of a standalone place in Canada because there's no treaties. It's not under the treaties yet. But regardless of that, let's just assume they can build the pipeline. They figure it out and they build the pipeline, the ocean. Well, it's like that whole BC government is sort of based on this no tankers legislation, right? That's their thing out there. So now I think BC is probably more amenable to changing that law. I think, you know, it seems like some of the stuff EB's talking about, like he might change that. Maybe they'll start allowing oil tankers back into the Pacific Ocean over there. Maybe they won't. And maybe that becomes a huge contention for BC all of a sudden. But going east, I think you got a huge contention with Quebec. And if you don't build any pipelines, you got a huge contention with Alberta and Saskatchewan. So I don't know, man. The more I try and like look at this, I don't see a long-term way out for, what if what's his name again? Rudyard? Rudyard? His video on how Canada could fail from years and years ago is just becoming more and more prescient, in my opinion, because I'm at the point now where I don't think it matters who the fuck wins. Somebody's going to be free. They're like, no matter who wins, there's going to be provinces freaking out. Quebec's just about fucking had it.
Well, because we're already past the point of fixing it. I think we're past the point of, unless Pierre
Carney, who was there to celebrate the divorce of fucking the European Union. I mean, the king's appointed man to help leave
That's what I'm worried about. That's what I'm worried about is he's going to come in and take us far enough center to maintain control in the liberal world order.
Well, this is what I'm saying. I don't think there's a way to do that anymore. I don't think there's a way to do that. I don't think how he gets us to center without pissing off a major part of Canada. Specifically, I mean,
he can just virtue signal and not really do what he's saying to his base.
But then, do you think Alberta's going to keep going with that? Because I mean, the rhetoric
they're going to come far enough center where they're going to give some stuff.
No, it's end of equalization. This is what I'm talking about, where it's like Alberta's at the point now where it's like, no, we're done with equalization. That things fundamentally need to change, and Quebec seems to be at that point as well. That's what I'm saying is I don't think that you can go far enough to send.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right. But this is where the Lada meme comes in, right? Is because we're going to bring in a new Lada in Canada. I mean, they're going to subsidize and say, well, let's build these simple, cheap little cars like Soviet Cold War cars. Have you seen the memes about those Toyota trucks, right? Because remember, they were trying to get their Toyota trucks into Canada, those $10,000 trucks. Like, I would buy one of those trucks, a brand new simplified transportation vehicle with a bed in it and everything, right? And Canada wouldn't allow it to happen, right? Because it would
that's the problem.
Destroy their own trucking, like the trucks, the Dodge trucks, and all that kind of stuff, right?
Well, that's not their truck either. That's the thing to remember.
No, that's the weird, but they think it is, right? It feels like it's Canadian trucks,
but it's not.
Is it America?
It's just Canadian manufacturing.
Is it even Canadian? They're just putting it together, though, or?
Well, Ford's is a U.S. company. Chevy's a U.S. company. Dodge is a U.S. company. Honda, which is, I mean, most of there's a Ford one, I think, in Ontario. Now I'm going out on a limb here, so I'll probably fuck some stuff up. But most of those cars getting made in Southern Ontario, you're looking at your Hondas and your Toyotas and your Hyundais, exactly what you're talking about, because you can't make cars in Korea and ship them over in shipping containers. It just doesn't make sense. It's not. So you make the cars here. I mean, Japan was the first ones to do it. They really cornered the business because they had such a huge demographic problem that they were like, well, this is what we'll do. We'll just set up shop over there. They'll be happy because their people are working, but we get to make most of the money. You know, yeah. I mean, arguably it wasn't the worst model in the world.
Yeah. Well,
it's weird. It's not the worst model in the world, I guess, when everybody's getting along.
During the Cold War, Ladas were exported widely to second and third world countries because they were cheap to produce, easy to maintain, and didn't rely heavily on Western parts. This made them a symbol of utilitarian, no-frills transportation. Functional, but far from luxurious or innovative.
That's way easier, though, because you got to think that during the Cold War, cars are just kind of coming out anyway. You know what I mean? Most of Europe, nowadays, if you can imagine going to that from cruise control.
Okay, let me get back to this clip here then.
But what is clear?
I'm down for a Lada, by the way.
Oh yeah, no, me too. That's what I'm saying. I just want something reliable, simple. I don't need the luxury anymore. Just give me something affordable, simple. Maybe that's even doesn't have any electronics that wouldn't stop running during an EMP or a solar flare.
How long do you think it takes to spin up an auto assembly plant?
Well, I mean, Elon could do it in no time. I mean, he put together that massive data center in 19 days. I've got a clip on this for another show where the data center
is pretty easy, I think, though, right? Compared to a car manufacturer, how long did it take him to spin up Tesla?
Yeah, I know, but he's really, really good at putting that kind of stuff together. Probably the best in the world ever that we've ever had that can put a flow, a manufacturing flow together.
Yeah, but now you get to assume the government's doing it.
Well, then we're fucked.
Because nobody wants to invest in Canada. Nobody's there's no Elon that's interested in spending money in Canada because we're such a fucking shit show up here that it's going to be the government. And when they got involved in that fucking pipeline, this is what the left likes to tout Alberta about. Well, we bought you a $30 billion pipeline. It's well, it would have been 4 if you would have let the private sector build it. And, now you're talking about taxing it.
Yeah. And our friends in the chat said, when I asked about these types of cars, they're like, well, the problem is all the emissions regulations, right? You can't just make a mechanical car now because it won't pass all those regulations. But let's finish off this clip here.
Is that
And you
we,
lose
Canadians have-
access to all that, like all that stuff you're building down there is proprietary to companies that aren't owned by Canada.
Right.
So can you even use the same plant to spin up the same, you gotta like come up with all this.
Oh yeah, everything's got to be from scratch. Yeah.
Certain stuff's got to be in the public domain now to a certain extent, right? But that's where they get you. I hadn't thought about that. All that emission stuff.
But it's
Gonna be
too bad we
impossible.
couldn't. But it's just too bad we couldn't come up with something ourselves in Canada, like our own little like domestic car manufacturer for cheap cars for the people. The Soviet version of the Lada. Like, what do you mean?
The problem is you just can't compete with the market.
Well,
It only works with the wall.
why not? I mean, if the market's if you're paying like
You know why the Soviets had the ladder, right? Because there's an Iron Curtain. So the
No,
Western stuff wasn't up.
that was in Germany, not Soviet though. I mean,
Iron Curtain was the separation of the East and the West. So all
of Germany though, right?
No, that's the Berlin Wall is Germany. The Iron Curtain is the entire the whole way down. It's a separation of East and West between the communist world.
Oh yeah.
So you weren't allowed to like do anything. So I guess the question would be is how many Ladas are still running around those countries since the market has now opened up to reallow the Western car market? Is it still a thing? Is it still going, or has it just totally collapsed? Because the Canadian car could be great if that's all they'll let us buy. But it's like if you got to choose that and you can get a Honda Civic still, or you can get a truck from the States, or maybe
I guess we'll never be able to compete. I mean, but that's the whole point is we should be able to compete and we should work towards that. I mean, making our own stuff so we can compete and not
well,
have
that's your point of it already being too late. It's like this is the stuff we should have been thinking about. I mean, if we weren't thinking about joining the States back then, we probably should have been rethinking how
we're doing everything.
How we intricately we were our dependency on them was.
That's why it feels like controlled demolition. Okay, let's listen to the rest of this with Carney.
Does that put me in the States though?
What?
Does that put me in the States? The controlled demolition?
I don't know.
What if they bought like all of Rupert's land when they bought the bay?
Yeah. That would be a good trick, eh? Trick, we already own you.
I mean, that's the other weird thing is this. Well, we own like a giant chunk of we own a third. I think it amounts to about a third of the country.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Have agency. We have power. Canadians have agency. We have power. We are masters in our own home. Nous sommes maîtres chez nous. We can control our destiny.
Really?
We can give ourselves
He's the worst
much more
teacher
than
ever.
any.
I mean, did he not take a single class?
No, dude, he's way better than a lot of them. I mean, he's a CEO type guy. He's been speaking to boards and stuff for his whole life. It's fine. It's just a corporate speak.
No,
It's a
that's the
corporate
thing.
speaker. It's just not a political guy. That's all.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He's terrible.
And look at how he's looking at. Watch how he looks at the camera during what he says in this.
Foreign government, including the United States, can ever take away. We can deal with this crisis best by building our strength right here at home. It will take hard work. It will take steady and focused determination from governments.
You know how you know he's bad?
From labor.
Because every time he pauses for effect, there's no effect.
From Canadians.
You know, it's like
we will need to dramatically reduce our reliance on the United States. We will need to pivot our trade
literally heard a pin drop, I think.
Relationships elsewhere. And we will need to do things previously thought impossible at speeds we haven't seen in generations.
I mean, that's like you said, it's some of the stuff you want to hear, right? But it's just 15 years too late.
Maybe.
But we can make ourselves more productive and therefore more competitive. We can break down internal trade barriers. We can build a stronger and more resilient economy. And that's what I'm squarely.
NAFTA, probably, right? NAFTA probably ruins it.
Yeah.
Well, that's like early 90s, probably. Is that Bill Clinton?
I think so.
Focused on as your prime minister.